إن الحمد لله نحمده ونستعينه ونستغفره ونؤمن به ونتوكل عليه ونعوذ بالله من شرور أنفسنا ومن سيئات أعمالنا من يهده الله فلا مضل له ومن يضلل فلا هادي له وأشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له وأشهد أن محمدا عبده ورسوله يا أيها الذين آمنوا اتقوا الله حق تقاته ولا تموتن إلا وأنتم مسلمون يا أيها الناس اتقوا ربكم الذي خلقكم من نفس واحدة وخلق منها زوجها وبث منهما رجالا كثيرا ونساء واتقوا الله الذي تساءلون به والأرحام إن الله كان عليكم رقيبا يا أيها الذين آمنوا اتقوا الله وقولوا قولا سديدا يصلح لكم أعمالكم ويغفر لكم ذنوبكم ومن يطع الله ورسوله فقد فاز فوزا عظيما أما بعد فإن أصدق الحديث كتاب الله وخير الهدي هدي محمد صلى الله عليه وسلم وشر الأمور محدثاتها وكل محدثة بدعة وكل بدعة ضلالة وكل ضلالة في النار. Brothers and sisters, in these unprecedented times, in these times where the world is under so much turmoil and uncertainty, it is very easy to ask ourselves, why am I in this time, in this era, and why is it that I am faced with the challenges that I am being challenged with, that I am facing? We see people around us, perhaps even our next door neighbors or people that are sitting beside us and that live a similar life, but they have no idea the struggles and challenges that we are going through, that our families are going through, that our situations are going through. And it is very easy to feel singled out, to feel that we are going through something that is extraordinary. But as we learn from the Qur'an and the Sunnah and the lives of our pious predecessors, if we ever feel that we are going through something unique, if it were to be the case that we were going through something unique, it isn't because Allah is picking on you, but it's rather that Allah wants you to stand out. It is because Allah has something special in store for you. This afternoon, brothers and sisters, I want to reflect on a story in Surah Kahf, a surah we are recommended to recite weekly because there are lessons of great import, of great importance that we can take from it every single week. And no matter how many times we come back to it, there is always a new lesson, a new gem for us to take from it. And so in these unprecedented times, we look at a prophet of Allah who went through unprecedented challenges and had truly a special life. And that is the story of Musa alayhi salam. Specifically, as mentioned in Surah Kahf, as he is going to spend time with Khidr. Musa alayhi salam is someone, as we all know, that had a truly extraordinary life. If you were to ask any of us, or tell any of us, that you're going to be born in a situation where you're already wanted killed for no crime of your own, and your mom's going to throw you inside of a basket, into a box, a chest, and you're going to grow up in enemy land, and you're going to run away and get married in another land, and you're going to come back and you're going to speak with Allah, and. You would say, unbelievable. Truly hard to believe. And yet that's what happened to Musa alayhi salam. And he is the prophet mentioned most in the Qur'an. Moses, Musa, the one that whom Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala spoke to. And he is mentioned more than any other prophet, including our beloved Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wasallam. Because there are so many lessons to learn from his ummah that we can still take lessons from to this day. Musa alayhi salam, in particular in this story, as narrated in the hadith, he was giving a khutbah similar to this. He is speaking to his ummah. And one of the people of Bani Israel, he poses a question, and he asks, who is the most knowledgeable person alive on earth? Musa a.s. assumes that it is him. And he has a good reason to assume that. He is a prophet of Allah, a messenger of Allah. He is Kalimullah, the one whom Allah SWT spoke to. He has had all these fantastical things happen to him. He has very good reason to believe that he is the most knowledgeable. But Allah SWT teaches a lesson that we don't work off of assumptions, but we work off of actual knowledge. Even if we are certain and we feel something is right, but we don't have the actual evidence to back it, that he didn't actually receive commandments saying, you are the most knowledgeable, we can't make those claims. So Musa a.s., he says, I am the most knowledgeable, not from a place of arrogance, but rather from his vantage point. And immediately Jibreel comes down as he is giving this khutbah, and it is revealed to him that, Musa, why do you speak about that which you have no knowledge? A reminder for us all. Why do we speak about that which we have no knowledge? There is in fact a man who has some knowledge that you don't have. And Musa a.s. immediately says, can I learn from him? He immediately humbles himself. He immediately recognizes his error. And he wishes to gain that knowledge. Because knowledge is a way of coming closer to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. A man who was so great, a leader of his ummah, he could have easily said, ask him to come to me. Tell him to come to my presence, to my court. No, he goes and he wants to seek knowledge. Many of the ulama, they say that this is the first recorded case in history of someone seeking knowledge. This tradition that we do to this day, our ummah, of going out and learning, and not just expecting tutors and people to come to our house, or all the knowledge to happen through Zoom and YouTube, but actually sacrificing a little bit of our time, our money. All of that starts with Musa a.s. So they set on this journey, and he comes across Khidr, whom some say was a prophet of Allah, others don't. But regardless, he was a man who was connected to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, who would receive revelation, who would receive admonitions, who would receive commands. He did not act of his own accord. And so Musa a.s. asks his permission that, may I accompany you, may I learn from you. He's requesting admissions to learn from this instructor. Khidr says, you don't have what it takes. You're not going to have the patience for this. And how could you have patience on something that is literally out of this world? Would someone in high school be expected to be admitted into a PhD program on metaphysics? No. Similarly, Musa a.s., as great of a prophet as he is, these are things outside of the ghaib, outside of the seen. These are matters of the unseen. Khidr says, what I am doing is extraordinary, and you won't have the patience for it. You don't have the prerequisites for it. Musa a.s. says, no, please, let me enter. He wants to benefit from Khidr. So Khidr says, okay, fine. And he gives a stipulation that a teacher is allowed to give. The teacher sets the curriculum, the agenda, the directives. And he says that you're allowed to accompany me on one condition, that you don't speak. That you just listen. And when I deem that I can tell you why I've done what I've done, when the situation calls for it, when you are ready to learn the lesson, then I will tell you. Musa says that's fine. You know, as a side point for us that are teachers in any capacity, whether formally in a classroom, or with our children, or with our siblings, or with the youth in the masjid, or with anyone else for that matter. Yes, the teacher doesn't immediately have to say why they're doing something, and they can say, because I said so, in the moment. But eventually the lesson should be shared. It is a courtesy that should be extended to every student. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will explain everything in His due time, and we as teachers should do the same. So they begin on this journey. A famous journey that I'm sure all of us know to some extent. But the lessons, inshallah, that will be a good reminder for us. They go on the ship, a ship of hardworking people that don't have much money, and they offer a free ride and they go on it. Khidr promptly makes holes in the ship and he leaves. Imagine that you are in College Park and you're trying to head to somewhere else in Maryland or somewhere else in the United States, and someone offers you a free Uber ride. And you get out of it, you slash their tires, and you walk away. Imagine how someone would feel that they just gave you a free ride that they could have charged a lot of money, and instead of thanking them, you slash their tires, you make their car inoperable. They now need to pay for a tow truck, they need to wait for repairs. All these people that they could have taken in their Uber, their taxi, they're not able to. Imagine how they feel. And Musa as-Salam immediately, he says, what have you done? And Khidr does not respond. He does not start justifying himself. He does not preemptively tell Musa, I'm about to do something and I need you to follow along and this is why I'm, no. He says, did I not tell you that you can't ask any questions? Musa as-Salam immediately understands what he's done wrong. And he says, forgive me, I've forgotten. It's human to forget, so don't hold this against me. Khidr then continues, right in that moment. Musa just said, forgive me, in that same span of time. As they're leaving the shores of the ship, they see these children playing. Khidr takes one of them and he kills him. Of course, none of us can do anything like this, but Khidr could have from the command of Allah. Musa a.s. already knows at this point that he's not to ask any questions. He has just been told the lesson is you do not ask questions. What does he do? He asks a question. Because what happened was so extraordinary, so out of this world, that he can't help it. He says, how could you take a defenseless child's life? What did he do wrong? As we see what happens in Palestine, we ask, how could Allah allow this to happen? There are people that ask this question naturally. Musa a.s. similarly, he's wondering, how could this happen? And Khidr tells him again, did I tell you, you can't ask questions? He is not stopping him from knowing the knowledge eventually, but he says, not right now. And Musa then says, alayhi salam, that if I am to ask another question, then this will be the end of it. I've done my 2 strikes. If there's a 3rd strike, it's over. The Prophet ﷺ, as he's sharing the story with us, he remarks and he says, may Allah have mercy on our brother Musa. If he had not made that condition, perhaps he would have gone on more wondrous journeys and seen more amazing things. Parents that with children or teachers with youth, you will often see that if you ask your children that, what punishment should I give you for this thing that you've done? Maybe they did something small. Maybe they forgot to fold their bed after waking up. They will make the most wildest punishments. They will say, I should be grounded for a month. I should not be allowed to go outside for the rest of the year. And they'll say a lot of things just to overcompensate for what they've done. And it's what we as humans often do, that we're very hard on ourselves. And so Musa a.s. similarly, he says, if there's one more strike, that's it. Khidr and Musa proceed, and they, in their 3rd and final installment of the story, they chance upon a town. They come there, and it was the custom of the whole world, and it continues in the Muslim world to this day, that if there is a traveler and they are in need, you give at least a little bit of bread, a little bit of water, something to just suffice them. This town is so stingy, they don't give anything. Khidr does not complain. He sees that the outskirts of the city, there are some walls that are in disarray. He then goes and fixes them. Musa a.s. comments. He says that, if we had wanted to, we could have requested some payment for this. We could have asked for some payment, not for the sake of just making money, but we could have gotten some money for some food. They're hungry, they're exhausted, they're famished. Musa a.s. is emotionally exhausted from everything he's seen in the last few days. He's physically exhausted, not getting enough food. And he doesn't even at this point ask it in a question format. He doesn't say, why didn't you ask for money? No, he just makes a comment. If we had wanted, But even this, brothers and sisters, is a question. If a teacher puts a lesson and says, we're going to cover lesson 11 today, and a student says, we could have covered lesson 12, it is a question. It's a question to the teacher, why aren't you covering that other lesson? Why aren't you doing something? It is teaching us adab, etiquettes, that even when we talk to our elders, our teachers, even if we make a passing comment, be careful what you say. Because it could be a way of challenging their authority or challenging their decisions. And that is not what a humble student of knowledge is to do. Khidr says, هَذَا فِرَاقُ بَيْنِي وَبَيْنِكَ. This now is the point where we're separated. You set the conditions. This is your third strike. This is it. Now let me explain to you all the things that you didn't have patience for. And he goes and he explains himself. He says, as for the first case of the ship with the people in it, there is a tyrant there. And he was to take and seize all of the ships. But because this ship was in disrepair, because this ship was inoperable, he did not take this one. And they were saved. And the commentary on this says that those people that were on the ship, of course you can imagine that slash taxi, that slash Uber that we were talking about before, they might have been really sad. They may have wondered what is going on. They may have been very angry. But they did not know that just it would be a loss of 1 or 2 days. But after this, when they go back into sea, would there be any other ships out there? There would be none. They would be the only one. They lost, yes, 1 or 2 days of rizq. But after that, they received dozens of days of rizq. And they literally had a monopoly on the whole market. Imagine that same taxi that they had to get a 1 or 2 days of repair. They didn't have any customers. But then they go to the airport and there's no other taxis there. And everyone wants to just go in their car. And they're guaranteed fares for the rest of the day, for the rest of the week. They're all booked out. They're all sold out. They don't have to compete with anyone. Now that feeling of frustration or anxiety or anger or denial of what happened suddenly turns into gratitude. That alhamdulillah that happened. Brothers and sisters, how many times in our life did we face a setback that we thought that us losing that job or that marriage proposal that was denied or that good news we were waiting for didn't end up happening or that promotion we wanted ended up going to someone else or that house that we bid on we didn't get or that car that we wanted ended up having issues and we couldn't keep it. How often did we think that was something bad for us? But then it ended up being the biggest blessing ever. That had we gotten that thing that we wanted just temporarily, we would have missed out on something far greater. And we use examples of the dunya, but this applies to the akhirah as well, brothers and sisters. That there are in fact blessings with a small b, with a lowercase b, that we could have received, but we would have lost bigger blessings with a capital B. We would have missed out on the akhirah had we been given everything exactly that we wanted. Similar to a child who just receives candy whenever they want, but then wonder why their teeth are rotten or they're unable to enjoy certain things later because of all the candy they've eaten. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala knows when to give us our blessings, and He knows when to withhold for our own good. In the second example, Khidr shares that he allowed for this death to occur. He committed this act not for any reason except it was a command from Allah, and it was known that when that child would grow up, that they would actually be very difficult on their family. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala wished and made it happen that that child was replaced, that family found themselves expecting and they had another child. That was the coolness of their eyes. That was a lot better to them. And the scholars talk about this as well, that they say that there is two benefits in fact to this. One is that that family, yes, they had the hardship of losing this child, but they only had good memories of this kid. They never experienced any difficulty from this little infant, this little boy who was playing, who was not doing anything evil just yet. And so they only knew goodness from him, and the family and the community only knew goodness from him. And when he passed away and they got another child, they got two children now, just in this encounter. And that one did grow up to be good. There was that hardship they faced. But if the family had known what would happen if that child grew up, if they had known that if there was just that child and they didn't have that other child that was good, they would have been suffering later. Brothers and sisters, how many people they lost their lives unjustly, or accused of crimes that they did not commit, or given punishments that perhaps were undue. But it ended up being a blessing for them. It perhaps was the reason they entered Jannah without any recompense. And we ask Allah to make us among those that are understanding. أقول قولي هذا وأستغفر لي ولكم ولسائر المسلمين فاستغفروه إنه هو الغفور الرحيم. Alhamdulillah, wassalatu wassalamu ala rasulillah wa ala alihi wa sahbihi wa man wala. Khidr continues to explain himself, and he shares the final story. And he says that that wall that we were rebuilding, that we didn't ask for payment for, in fact, underneath there is a treasure meant for some orphans of a righteous family. Their family was righteous. And similar to the second story, where that child who died, their families were righteous. And so, we did not want that money to be gotten too early by these orphans whose father passed away, their righteous father who passed away. Because if they were younger and the orphans received that money, others would say, let me take care of that for you. I'll give it to you later. Never to give it again, or to take advantage of them. But Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala stipulated that even if that righteous father was not there, they would still be taken care of. Brothers and sisters, what a reminder for us all, that what do we want for our children? What do we want for our ummah? We want them to be financially independent. We want them to grow up to be salih, to be righteous. And the answer is in you and I to be righteous. That is the best thing we can leave them. The best inheritance we can leave them is not making sure that they finish a degree, is not making sure they get a good job. Those are good, but those are means to an end. But when you leave them with a father, a mother who is righteous themselves, they will have the values to be better. And they will be helped in ways that are miraculous. Imagine the mom of those orphans. She is crying to Allah, "Oh Allah, help us. Oh Allah, provide for us. Oh Allah, I no longer have a husband. Who will take care of us?" And her dua was not to be answered that year, or the next year, or the year after that, or the year after that, or the year after that. But when it was answered handsomely. It was answered beautifully. And they were left with a treasure, kanz, an inheritance that took care of them when the time was right. Brothers and sisters, you look at all of these stories that we shared, and there's a few themes that you see. The most important of them is trust in Allah. Trust in Allah. You might be going through a challenge, a difficulty, and you're wondering, why me, why now? You may be worried about the future. Who will take care of my kids if I'm not here? Who will take care of our house? Who will pay the mortgage? Who will, and so on and so forth. Trust in Allah. For He has taken care of your parents, your grandparents, your ancestors before you were here, and He will take care of your descendants after you are gone. Number two, the teacher does not always talk during the test. When you are taking the test, the teacher is quiet and the results are shared later. There are things that happen that there seems to be no good explanation for. Had we not heard Khidr's explanation of killing this young child, could we have explained logically any reason why a young little kid should have been eliminated? Could we explain it logically? There is absolutely no way you could explain it. No way whatsoever. a stranger killing another boy. But when it was explained, when the qadr of Allah came down, all made sense. And so that is an item for us all to learn. And number 3, it is to have humility, to be humble, to realize that what we actually know is very little and what Allah knows is everything. And to continue to keep ourselves humble. That whatever goodness that we have, whatever we own and possess, whatever earnings that we make, none of it is from us. It could all be taken away in a second. It could be given to us doubled in a second. But it is all from the rahmah of Allah, the mercy of Allah. So turn back to Him. Brothers and sisters, as we live in times of uncertainty, realize that the righteous before us also lived in times of great uncertainty. But because they had a reliance on Allah, Allah took care of them, and we continue to share their story to this day, and we continue to benefit from them, and we continue to learn from them. We ask Allah to make us amongst the patient. We ask Allah to make us among those that have tawakkul and reliance upon Him. We ask Allah to make us among those that read the Qur'an with reflection and try to draw lessons from it. ربنا آتنا في الدنيا حسنة وفي الآخرة حسنة وقنا عذاب النار ربنا لا تزغ قلوبنا بعد إذ هديتنا وهب لنا من لدنك رحمة إنك أنت الوهاب وأقم الصلاة